All right. Hello and welcome everyone to today's webinar on partnering for success in product sustainability. We'd like to thank everyone for taking the time out of their day to join us on this very important topic. Our goal is to make this webinar as valuable as possible, so everyone attending, please feel free to drop any questions you may have in the Q&A section throughout the presentation. We'll leave time at the end to answer as many as possible and be sure to respond directly to any we are unable to get to. If you wouldn't mind also indicating perhaps what company you are with and who you are, that would be great, so we might be able to address you directly after the webinar is concluded. My name is Todd Merton, Head of Business Development for the Ethical Supply Chain Program, and I'm so pleased to be joined today by Helena Mansell-Stouffer, the founder and CEO of Products of Change. Helena has used her deep background in the brand licensing and consumer product sectors to drive industry collaboration towards a common goal of product sustainability. Products of Change are leaders in advancing sustainability and supporting businesses across multiple sectors and transitioning to their own sustainable practices and addressing environmental challenges. There are many motivating factors why a business might embark on a product sustainability journey. Some will do it because it's the right thing to do, or they may belong to an industry that relies heavily on plastics and other non-renewable materials and are looking for ways to reduce their impact. Some may do it to keep up with the changing demands of their consumers. As the younger generation and their parents become increasingly more eco-conscious, they choose to spend their money on products that align with their values. An ever-increasing reality for many sectors, however, it is quickly becoming something they have to do in order to comply with regulatory requirements. Regardless of the reason, the journey to product sustainability should not be viewed as a burden, but as an opportunity that can lead to better alignment with their customers and long-term profitability. Sustainable practices can lead to substantial cost savings through more efficient manufacturing and packaging, reduce waste, and supply chain optimization. At ESCP, we're always looking for partnerships that will benefit not only our members, but the industries they belong to. Whether it be through capability building, shared data collection, or establishing uniform industry standards, Products of Change are the perfect organization for us to partner with to achieve this. If you are a business with already mature sustainability practices or just starting the journey, Products of Change can offer expert guidance. By partnering together, our respective members can join a community of like-minded businesses committed to social and environmental compliances. Our organizations and our members can be part of the solution in eliminating redundancies and helping to standardize the way entire industries can achieve sustainability. Working with ESCP and Products of Change, businesses can now more efficiently execute their social and environmental strategies and achieve their goals. I'd now like to turn things over to Helena, but before I do, just a quick reminder again to make sure you drop any questions you may have in the Q&A section so we can address them at the end. Over to you, Helena.
Thank you, Todd, and it's a real privilege to be here today. And, POC is very excited by our partnership because actually we've got a lot of members that are the same companies. And so, my first shout out is to any companies that are out there that are already members of POC, but maybe you're not connected to us as a platform. Please do get in touch with me on the chat here or at helena@productsofchange.com, and I can make sure that you then get your login for the companies that are part of POC. So if you think that you might be part of us, please do let me know. If not, you can go and check out our website when it goes about POC, our members, and you can scroll to see if your company's logo is in there. As Todd mentioned earlier as well, it'd be really fascinating for me to understand today what company you work for and also what department you work in. I think dependent on what department you work in really depends on your role in sustainability, because we all need to embed sustainability into everything that we do, but there are some roles that as we know have to do a lot more of the hard work. With that, Todd, I will share my screen and we can start the presentation. Here we go. Can you see? Are we all good? Amazing. As Todd also said before, if you've got any questions, please do pop them in the chat or raise your hand at the end, and hopefully I will be able to answer them for you. If not, I will get back to you. There's always a way to ask another expert within the POC team. So for those that don't know about Products of Change, we're actually a not-for-profit membership organisation for the brand and licensing industry, but we work across all of the vertical categories within the brand and licensing industry. So we work with brand owners, product manufacturers across all product kinds, and we work with retailers. And then all of those amazing supporting services that intertwine between all of that we work with too. So we really belong to collaborate on shaping the future of the infrastructure of our industry, one that safeguards the next generation by embedding compliance, reducing risk, minimizing environmental and social impact, and unlocking long-term profitability. Sustainability shouldn't all just be a cost center or for the person that wears the sustainability hat. It's really about being efficient within business, and while being efficient, looking at how we reduce our impact. So across our PwC community, we've got 192 corporate members, which is over 1,000 individuals which are working and chatting and coming across the platform and attending our webinars and just learning from each other on a daily basis. As part of PwC, we've got many objectives. We've got a whole strategy to take us to the 2030 climate goals, but that feels very far away, even though we're obviously in 2025 already. But actually for 2025, our key strategic objectives are to embed sustainability across the business model of the industry. So how we actually equip you and organizations with the knowledge, the tools, and the best practice to look at how you practically implement sustainability practices within your business, but within your role as well within that business. How we really foster collaboration, a bit like we're doing today, and cross-sector partnerships. So how we continue to build our network that connects brands, suppliers, and stakeholders to co-develop industry solutions. Not one company can do this on their own. Within our industry, we work in such a mixture of a supply chain. There's so many companies involved in what we do that actually, unless we're all on that journey together, you might be doing your bit, you're going to hit a roadblock, and then you're not going to be able to progress. So everything that we do, we co-create as an industry. We really want to accelerate data-driven decision making, and we're seeing this coming down the line, especially through a lot of the legislation, but actually really look at how we encourage the adoption of metrics and systems that actually enable us to measure our environmental impact, and then look at how we reduce that as a collective. We want to empower the workforce by educating and training and showing the best practice, and actually use our conference at the end of the year. We have a conference on the 5th of November to really showcase who in the industry is leading and also what's coming next. We want to look into the future to see how we need to be operating. So on top of all of that, if you're not a member of PwC, please do go and sign up to get our newsletter. We send it out twice a week, so you can learn through that. We have a magazine, and then we also partner with a huge amount of organizations, both inside the industry and outside of the industry, to bring all of their innovations through to you as an entity. We've also produced a huge amount of resources, free sustainability plans, white papers, guidebooks, online education, and even a maturity index, so brand owners can start to understand the impact of their business on the maturity of their partners, and how partners can really start to benchmark themselves against each other. On top of that, we're also looking at how we transform the industry by partnering with other impact initiatives. So last year, we created our first future forecast report. This is really looking to what brand owners and retailers are committing to. And then we also look at how we bring innovation back into the industry through our toy working groups, and even through, we've got an initiative that we're working on with a not-for-profit to look at how we can build closed loop systems within the toy industry. So that's trialing in the UK with a retail partner, that's Tesco's. It's funded by the toy producers and by UK magazine publishers. And we're wanting to do more of this, and wanting to pull the industry together to build collective solutions. And we want to do that because actually the environmental impact of making and shipping and disposing of all this amazing, beautiful product that we make has actually a negative environmental impact. So even in Europe, where I'm sitting today, we generate around 5 tons of municipal waste per person per year, which is equivalent to a fully furnished small house. That's a lot of waste, and actually 20% of that global is global methane emissions when we look at waste, and actually half of that, 10% of that, is all of the waste from our food. We buy more, which we know is great for our bottom line, but actually we keep it for less, and so we're just making a lot more and not thinking of the end-of-life solutions. And as we know, the majority of things that we do produce don't have an end-of-life solution. And we're here not predominantly talking about toy today, but there's a lot of toy members here today, and more than 80% of toys actually don't have an end-of-life solution. And even when there is a small solution, even 14% of global plastic packaging is collected, not recycled. Collection is one thing, recycling is another, and only 2% is being recycled. And even on the electronic side, I know in some countries, especially in Europe, we have a WE tax, a waste electronic tax. But even in 2019, globally, we generated 53.6 million metric tons of e-waste. Only 17.4% of that was officially documented. It's collected or recycled. But what I want to point out here is there's huge value in the waste of what we're producing here. We just need the systems to collect it, and then we need to be able to reuse it in some way, equaling the circular economy. And actually, what's interesting when we hold our conference is we get retailers to come and talk to us and share what they're doing. And so we were very lucky that Dunelm, who is a retailer of home, actually came to the conference last year, and they talked a lot about how, we've witnessed climate change firsthand, not just as a concept in a sci-fi movie, but actually the realities that have unfolded over our lifetime. And we really need to look ahead of how the future generation is going to live. So if we take, for example, just the UK, we know that we've got more frequent flooding, hot summers, shorter winters. And because of that, the local government is now legislating that any new homes that are built from 2025 will have to produce 75 to 80% less carbon emissions than homes built under the current building regulations. So it's going to be quite fascinating how over the next few years we do start to live differently. We're going to have a different relationship with the products that we buy, and a bigger infinity to the products that we buy. And just linking back to the e-waste conversation before, of only that was it 17.4% has been recycled. Last year was the first year that the Royal Mint didn't actually create any new coins. The Royal Mint create and produce a lot of coins globally, but we're acting differently. We're not going to the shop and spending actual hard cash anymore. Most of our transactions are done online, and I just wanted to highlight this because change kind of creeps up around us and suddenly it's there. So it's really important that we keep an eye on all of the trends that are happening in the marketplace, not necessarily just within our own lane of consumer goods, but actually what's happening out there in society that will actually affect us as businesses. So the Royal Mint have been quite clever. They're looking at how they can, all that e-waste has got a huge amount of value to it. So they've created a factory and they're taking precious metals from that e-waste and they're repurposing all those old circuit boards, and suddenly rather than earning money from minting coins, they're earning money from selling scrap metal, but scrap precious metal. And we're going to see a lot more of this coming in the future of innovations that actually start to enable us to reuse and repurpose materials that once were not. So that's that bit. What I did want to showcase here is that we know there's legislation coming down the line, and I'll go through that in a minute, but also because of all of the pressures, especially when we look at de-risking and wanting to have a business in the future, we've got brand owners and retailers that actually are committing to reducing their environmental impact. So, 30% of the world's largest brand owners have committed to SBTi, which is a science-based target initiative. And that's where they have to disclose their carbon emissions on a yearly basis and actually show actual reduction of their impact as a business. And actually 6 of the top 10 global brand owners have made 2030 commitments. And with 2030 only being 5 years away, we're going to see some quite significant shifts in requirements over the next couple of years. When we look at retail, and that's where us as an industry, we end up, if retail says no, it's not good. If they said yes, we jump as high as we can possibly do to meet their requirements. 80% of the world's top 10 retailers are now aligned to the SBTi, and 8 out of the top 10 world's biggest retailers have made 2030 commitments. And even talking to US retailers, they're still committed to this because this is de-risking their business. They're actually being efficient. They're saving money by doing this. So again, it's not just a nice thing to do. When you embed sustainability metrics into your business, it actually is good for business. So this is not going to go away. The rhetoric around it in some markets may be, but the doing of the work, not at all. As I said before, regulations on environmental, social and governance is definitely starting to pick up, especially here in the EU, to really achieve greater transparency and accountability for companies all over the world. We can no longer have waste that gets thrown and incinerated, or put elements into our products that nobody really sees anymore. You know, everything that we do has got to be disclosed moving forward. Especially in Europe, this is all part of the EU Green Deal. And there's a lot of legislation, but the main elements within the EU Green Deal are EPR, which is actually getting producers to be responsible. So this is extended producer responsibility, being responsible for the disposal of their products or the repurposing of their products, or actually being fined for using materials that have no end of life solution. The GCD is a Green Claims Directive, so that's going to stop people greenwashing, so saying it's a sustainable brand when it isn't, or that they haven't got all of the claims to back it up. ESPR, which is the Eco Design for Sustainable Product Regulations, is going to really encourage repair and reuse. And also at the end of ESPR, we've got something called the Digital Product Passport, which is going to allow us to inform and empower consumers on the decisions that they make. So all of this is part of this huge framework that's coming out of Europe. We get quite dense here. I'm not going to go into loads of detail with this. I've put this on here so you can screenshot it if you wish to. Anything with the number 1 next to it is currently in force and applies to all businesses. Number 2 is in force, but actually for businesses that have got a 20 million plus turnover, and it goes down from there. All I wanted to showcase here is that actually in all corners of the world, there are new environmental and social regulations rolling out. And it's really important to try and keep on top of all of those because it will affect your business moving forward. It isn't just for product producers. So in the past, it was the product producer that was fully responsible for the impact of the product. But actually under new EU regulation, a brand owner has got to disclose the environmental and the social. They've got to disclose that under non-financial reporting. And this is the first time that brand owners have had to do this. It's under the EU Taxonomy Bill. And within that, there are two frameworks: CSRD, which is the Corporate Social Reporting Directive, and the CSDDD, which is a Corporate Social Due Diligence Directive. And what that's going to ask brand owners to do is look at the double materiality of them as a company. So what double materiality does is it combines financial and impact materiality into one assessment. So financially, so these might be issues that internally impact the financial performance and the company's ability to create economic value. And also external impacts as a company's activity. So includes impacts on a community and an environment level, so air, emissions, water, greenhouse gases. And so brand owners are going to have to disclose that information. Now, if a brand owner is earning from the sale of a product, even if they're not producing it, for example, licensed, then the brand owner will have to disclose the environmental and social impact of their licensed business. At the minute, there's a lot of conversation happening around this framework. It's not going away, but what's happened is because of the sheer volume of information that's required and the lack of transparency across supply chains and across partners within this area of industry, the EU is giving companies another year to try and pull that information together into a framework that can be disclosed, and it's got to be independently verified as well. That all takes time. And also what they've done is they've actually increased the threshold of companies that are part of it. So they're really starting with those top companies that have got over 500 employees, and then they'll roll out from there. So this isn't going away. What they're looking at doing is releasing the burden on the companies while they get their house in order. We know that the US is a tricky market at the minute, but there is regulation in certain states, in New York and in California. A lot of legislation got passed in 2024 before the change of government. And so those legislations still stand. There were some amendments of those legislations that were going through the courts in the US, and they have not been passed yet, but the original legislation are still to be followed. So these legislations still stand today, which is good as far as I'm concerned. And then when we look at the Eco Design for Sustainable Product Regulations, this came into force in the EU at the end of last year. It really sets a framework for eco design requirements that requires products to be produced so they're durable and they've got some reusability in them, that they can be repaired or upgraded, that at the end of their life, they've got recycled content in them and can be recycled. That they have a lower environmental impact. And at the end of this ESPR framework will be the digital product passport. And I know that, Todd, you've done some updates with the Fabicus team on digital product passport. So I'm not going to go too much into this. But there are certain categories within the ESPR framework that are going to come first within the digital product passport. For our industry, that's very much the fashion and the footwear and the homeware industry, and then toys will be part of that next wave. We don't know what the full extent of this is going to look like because it's still all going through the European Union and being discussed. But the plan is that by the end of this year, we'll get full disclosure of what's going to be required. And from 2027, the rollout will start. And then with the hope that all products being imported or exported out of Europe by 2027 will have this digital product passport carrier across all consumer goods. We've got a lot to do before then. There's some regulations that are hitting people now, and the majority of that is EPR, which is extended producer responsibility. It started in packaging and it will move into product. So in the UK, there's been a couple of updates already at the beginning of this year. The first one is at the scheme administrator, PAC UK. So if you were to go online and you were to search PAC UK, all the information about UK EPR is on there, all of the updated as far as what you are responsible for disclosing as a company. And also the base fees have just been showcased as well. So this is where there'll be different fees associated with different product materials or packaging materials. So that's up there today. And then what will be happening as we move into next year is modulated fees will come into play. So the material will be taxed at a certain rate, but how easily that material is then going to be recycled, or the infrastructure available for that material to be cycled, will then increase or decrease the tax amount. So there's two things at play there that we're going to have to keep an eye on. And because of that, the recycling label requirements has actually been moved out until 2027, because the hope is actually, because now there are going to be fees associated to certain products, that actually there'll be more investment put into those products for recycling, which means that hopefully more products will have a better infrastructure by the time we get to 2027, so the fees aren't as much. Who knows what's going to happen there? But this is what they've put out. So this is all updated as of about a month ago. EPR in Europe has been around for came into force a year earlier, and it is not as clear because it's not a one size fits all. Each member state has got their own requirements. France is different to Germany, is different to Poland, though there's a framework that they all roll up into. How you pay your tax and disclose your tax locally is different. What is the same is the frameworks that they ladder up to. So the Waste Framework Directive, the Packaging and Packaging Waste Regulation, the Directive on Waste Electronics, the WEEE that I mentioned earlier, and then the Single-Use Plastic Directive. And a lot of schemes that are out there that are helping licensed manufacturers navigate this. A lot of the if you tick brand as a box, they're saying that the brand owner is responsible. Now, what they mean by that is, if it's Heinz making tomato soup and you're distributing it for them, it's Heinz that are responsible because they produced it. What they don't mean is that if you've produced a product under license, that the licensor is responsible, because they're not. So if you're manufacturing, even though you're using a brand's name under license, you are still responsible for reporting EPR regulations. It's a producer that pays. I've only said that because there's been quite a few licensees that haven't disclosed their EPR. That's all because of that. And then there's another one. So the European Union Deforestation Regulation, and there's been regulation around deforestation for a while, but what's happening here is it's really tightening. So this was meant to come into force at the end of last year, but the systems were just not ready to cope with this. So it actually got moved back to December this year. And so this is where any it's not just paper, so it's cattle, cocoa, coffee, palm oil, rubber, soil, wood, or any product that's derived from these, e.g. paper, packaging, leather, etc., will have to showcase the origin of that product. So, for example, one hardback book might have 8 different paper sources in it. and you're going to have to disclose all of that information. Good news is that people like FSC have created a piece of technology called the FSC blockchain. So there's a huge amount happening in this area already. But the difference between this regulation and a lot of the other regulations is that you won't actually be able to import any product or export any product out of the EU without that information. So it actually gets stopped at customs, as the other regulations don't. So that's just a bit of a flag if you're not aware of this, that this is coming. It doesn't affect packaging as such, though obviously packaging is a paper product because packaging will be captured under the EPR regulation. And I put this in here just to give you an idea of who's going to be responsible in gathering the information or having a risk assessment or doing a due diligence statement or actually disclosing the information. And if you want more information on that, please do let me know. So this isn't everything, but it's a bit of a, this is what's happening within the world of environmental and social regulation that's coming down the line. A lot of this actually comes into force in 2026. And then from then is going to really start to hit, especially the SME community. And then we put on the left-hand side, the ones that are in place here already, just so people could start to track some of this. So within POC, we're updating this all the time, and we do regular updates, regular webinars with a lot of the experts that are working with DEFRA and a lot of these associations that I've got the finger on the pulse of all of the 7, some of them had to read like 2,000-page documents on all of this. So they're very much in the detail. So if you do have any questions, please do let me know. And the reason why all of that is coming into place, because actually the raw materials, the packaging and the materials that we use in the product actually are the majority of the impact of a product that's produced. And so that's why all of that regulation is put in place. So actually we can start to get more information about the impact of the materials that we're using and look at how we start to reduce them. So I thought I'd just put some information up here. This is one of our POC members, and they were looking at how they can start making a bit more of an informed decision on whether they want to produce locally at home in the UK versus outside in another country. And they wanted to look at where the environmental impact lies across their product. And then they could look at where the environmental impact is, look at the cost differentiation between them, and then make a real informed decision of what is the right thing for them to do. So I just thought I'd pop this up here because the more information and data we can start getting through our systems as companies, the more informed decisions we can make, and then we can actually start to track those. And this is just some other elements that we've been doing with a platform called Dayrise, where we've been feeding information back to the POC community on just the environmental, the reduction on environmental impact across not just carbon, but on water and on land use when we start to use more sustainably sourced materials. So on the left here, we've got a polyester, and on the right here, we've got recycled polyester. And it's just really fascinating when you start to see just using a material that is not a virgin material, just the sheer reduction in impact that you can have just by that one thing. And then while we were on carbon and talking about metrics, I just thought I'd mention that part of the POC community last year, we've actually built a carbon methodology for brand owners. So this is something that is not available currently. So anybody that's into their carbon accounting, most people get their carbon accounting from the Greenhouse Gas Protocol. And within the Greenhouse Gas Protocol framework, there are no defined rules on what a brand owner would be responsible for when it comes to the environmental impact of their licensed product. So we built that with 33 brand owners last year. That's all up for approval with the World Resource Institute. So if anybody is interested in reading that 96-page document, then please do let me know. And then from that body of work, what was really showcased is actually the lack of data that we have within us as an industry. So we're actually nearing completion of a body of work where we're actually giving carbon metrics to our members to showcase like carbon archetype data for a product. So at least it enables companies that are working in product to understand some of the impact. So we'll be rolling that out mid this year. And then on top of that, we really connect to some amazing innovators out there. So last Tuesday, the PSC community held a fashion working group at an amazing place in London called the Mills Fabrica. And the Mills Fabrica have material innovators. So biotech, very clever scientists working on material innovation. So I just wanted to bring a couple of those slides here to show you today, because there's so much happening in this area. So we know legislation is coming down the line. We know everybody's requiring us to disclose what we're doing, but also there's a huge amount happening as far as better materials that have low environmental impact that we can start to use and start to scale. So one of those biotechs is called Nanolume. So they've created a new material that actually is very lightweight and is 200 times stronger than steel at its atomic level. So what they do is they're mechanically producing this new material. It's biodegradable and recyclable. It's not toxic, which is really fascinating. It uses minimum waste in the production, and it uses 10 times less water in production than some other synthetic materials. I'm not going to go through all of them. I'm not the biotechnical scientist, if that's even the right word. But what they can then do with this material, yes, they can make it into a weave and into a textiles, but they can also build it into a structure as well that fits within the infrastructure that operates within industry today. So it was just really good to have an understanding of all of this new technology that's coming down the line. Modern Synthetics is also another biotech company that's just bringing new materials to life. I mean, they grew this shoe into this shape. It's quite amazing what we're going to be able to do in the future. So they've created a new class of biomaterial that meets the market's complex needs. Performance without plastic, we like that. Free from petroleum chemicals or harmful toxic byproducts. No animals. Well, unlocking infinite looks and feels and function and design. And actually, they can scale this really quickly using existing infrastructure. And this was the actual, what do they call it? The cells of it all growing. They grow this synthetic. It's so fascinating, and I'm not a scientist, but it's amazing what's happening out there today. So the bacteria grows, they enhance it through their process, they combine the custom biofilm with natural textiles, and then they finish the material with green chemicals, and it creates a whole new material. And then there was an amazing guy from the University of Cambridge that came, and he was showing us about his color fix technology. And so we know that a huge amount of water is used per year within dyeing of textiles, and for toys and for clothing, and a huge amount of chemicals that just get leached into the local waterways, which we know has a massive, you know, horrible effect in the environment. But what they're doing is they are cleverly using the colors that occur in nature that grow, and they're actually growing color into products. So colored biofilms, which is just totally fascinating. So they grow the culture in a fermenter, which is their dyeing machine, and then they wash and they rinse it, and it comes out that so biology has colored this. It's quite fascinating, and it's not toxic or harmful in any way. So what they said is, look, the material here is biology has created the color of that material, and there's no harmful dyes that get leached into the waterways, and again that can it kind of fits into the normal infrastructure of textiles manufacturing. It's just fascinating what's coming, and they're looking at how they then scale that, I guess, from fashion, but this kind of scalability and innovation, I'm sure in the future will start to come through to many other consumer goods. So I'm wrapping up now for questions, but within the PSC platform, we're continuing to have lots of conversation, looking at legislation that's coming, working with our members. For example, Tesco's are coming on the platform to showcase how they're navigating EPR. And then within our fashion working groups and our toy working groups, we're looking at innovations and scalable technologies and how we come together as an industry to really drive change. So sustainability really is all about efficiencies and de-risking business. And we'd love for those that are part of the community already to come join us. And if not, more than happy to answer some questions. I feel like I've thrown a lot at everybody there, Todd.
Yeah. Yes, definitely a lot of great information though, and very fascinating to see kind of what is on the horizon, or not even on the horizon, what's here now, and potentially going where it's going to end up. So it's been great to have you here to present that information to us. But yeah, we'd like to open it up for anybody that might have any questions that they'd like to ask. We're happy to take those. Feel free to drop them in the Q&A or the chat box.
I now put my email in here as well,
Great.
in case anybody wants to say hello, or if anybody's business is already part of POC, please do get in touch with me and we can also get people on the platform.
Here, if we got any chats left. All right. All right, so it doesn't look like we have any questions yet. If feel free to raise your hand as well if you do have a question and want to ask it directly to Helena, we can do that as well. We'll just leave it open. Oh, looks like we might have a question here. Here we go. This is from Chris Shantz. Thanks, Helena. Wanted to ask your recommendations for small toy companies that don't have a lot of money and time. What are the best steps we can take or programs we can prioritize to improve sustainability?
Yeah, and thanks for that question, Chris. So, I mean, sustainability is all about being efficient. So, and there's lots of ways that you can be efficient and start to reduce your environmental impact. So, I don't know if you've done any work looking at your packaging yet. There's a huge amount of money that can be saved just by reducing the box thickness, by the way the box is put together, reducing the box size so you can fit more boxes into cube utilization. So even if you just start there and look at how you can start to reduce your impact there, that might then give you a little bit of money to then look at spending on maybe using materials that are sourced more sustainably or that are from a recycled content. And so looking at it as a whole, rather than just looking at one simple area. But I think packaging is by far the quickest way to save some money. And then the material side of the products that you use is definitely the quickest way to reduce your impact.
Great. I've got another question here. Do you expect these regulations to continue coming on stream and to remain a priority given the current unstable global climate or tariffs?
I mean, hasn't the last 6 years of industry been tough anyway? Especially in Europe, in the UK, we had Brexit and then we had COVID. How people shop has changed. We've had so much fluctuation already. And with the new global political landscape, I can't see that going away. But I must say that the large corporates that we talk to that have got in that have embedded sustainability into their core principles as an operation, efficiencies, de-risking, they're the ones that are winning. Look at Lego with their double-digit growth and how consumers view them. Again, I was even speaking to the Walmart team only 3 weeks ago, and they're de-risking their business by investing in this because they know that food supply chains are decreasing. Or, this stuff is happening. Even we know that places that grow the cotton for the textiles, the same within the food industry. We businesses know that they need to invest in this area to continue to have a business that's going to be operational over the next 5 to 10 years. So I can't see it's not going to go away. I think what will happen, a bit like D&I, is that people just won't talk about it as much publicly. There'll just be a lot happening behind the scene. There's so much that happens behind the scene at POC with the brand owners and the manufacturers and retailers that we work with. We don't talk about half of it because it's all incubator projects. It's all people working together. People don't want it in the public domain, but it is definitely happening. There's so much work happening in the back end.
Great. I just have a question personally. For any of our members or any companies out there on the call that are just starting this kind of journey and wondering what they can do. Does Products of Change have any tools that they can utilize to kind of get a baseline? Is it the maturity index, or can they use something to kind of get a starting point and understand where there might be some areas within their supply chain or within their product line that they can start to look at areas to improve on?
Yeah, definitely. So if you were to head to the website under resources, there's a framework, and that's free to anybody to download. It's basically a sustainability plan with 5 levers of elements that you can focus on with a short, medium, and long-term objectives, or everything from a brand owner to a product producer. So that is a really good starting point. Pull your team together. It needs to be, you need to have a representative from all areas of the business, and also make it part of people's day job. Go task everybody with what they can go and do. Get more information about the impact of your product. Start asking your supply chain, do you have a code of conduct? Have they got any information on the environmental impact of the products that they're producing for you? There's quite a lot of things that you can ask them and just hold in a central place within your organization before you even start to pay for more heavier technology that helps things be automated. There's lots that you can do on your own. We've got members that track their carbon on Excel spreadsheets. It can be quite simple, but you've just got to want to do it. And when you start, you'll realize it's not as hard as you think. It's just a bit like when you want to run a marathon and you think, oh, I can't even run for 5 minutes, but you train and you chip it off day by day and you eventually run your marathon. It's a bit like that. Is eventually your knowledge will increase and you'll start to make more informed decisions as a business and start to focus on the right things.
Great. And does your membership base, is it made up of both small, very small, potentially startup type companies all the way up to the larger licensee brands, and that is it?
Yeah. Yep. So a sole trader can join for £250. That's all it is. And then we go all the way up to larger organizations that are over 300 individuals. And we built the membership that way because we want everybody to come be part of the conversation, because it's important for everybody to do their bit.
Absolutely. Well, great. I appreciate that. It doesn't look like we have any more questions at the moment. If anybody does have something, feel free to pop it in right now. But again, just so everybody's aware, we will have this webinar has been recorded, so we'll have it available on our website at ethicalsupplychain.org if you wanted to take a look at it again, or perhaps share it with any of your colleagues that might not have been able to attend today. But again, wanted to thank everybody for taking the time to be here today. We know it's an important topic, and thank you to Helena for enlightening us all on the work that Products of Change has done and continues to do. And we look forward to working together here as we move forward. So I just want to again thank everybody, and I'll leave it to you, Helena, for any wise parting words for us all before we leave.
No, a big thank you to everybody. I'll be at Licensing Expo, so if anybody's going to be there, please do come and say hello. We've got a booth in partnership with the Informa team. And then, let's produce differently. Let's make this our generation's mission to the moon of trying to change how we do things, because it's good for business and it's amazing for the next generation.
Great. I appreciate it.
Thank
you
you.
everybody again for joining, and that'll conclude today's webinar. But please feel free to reach out to either Helena or myself if you do have any questions or need any additional information. We'll be happy to help you out. So again,
Amazing.
everybody enjoy your day. Thank you again.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.